As the government continues efforts to keep the blast furnaces burning at British Steel's Scunthorpe plant, questions have been raised over China's involvement in the industry. Joining me now is Professor Kerry Brown, Director of the Lao China Institute at King's College. Professor, thank you very much for speaking to us. How concerned or otherwise should we be about China's investment in the UK, in the steel industry and beyond?
Well, first of all, there isn't a massive amount of Chinese investment in Britain. It's about 0.2% of our overall stocks. It's mostly Americans and Europeans that invest here. And so, we're not talking about big numbers. The Chinese record of investment in Britain has always been pretty patchy and pretty turbulent. I mean, 20 years ago, they invested in NG Rover, a car company, and that was problematic for different reasons. They invested 6 billion in Hinkley Point nuclear station. That didn't work out. So in a sense, this is really kind of less surprising than it might appear. The anomaly, though, is that, it's the second biggest economy in the world, China. It's a fifth of global GDP. As we go into really tough economic times, we can certainly be kind of choosy and picky about the investment that comes here. But it is an opportunity cost, because the more we say no, the less that's likely to come.
And what about the areas that China has chosen to invest in? You mentioned nuclear power there, water companies, a key industry, steel industry. How did we get here? And should successive governments have paid more attention to this patchwork, this patchy investment in different key infrastructure areas in this country?
Well, it's certainly true that Britain has tended not to think a great deal about the kind of companies it's dealing with. In these big infrastructure areas, it's state companies mostly in China. Yeah, of course, they're very strongly linked to the government. And I don't think that the problem really is that they want to come and, sabotage the British economy. I think the problem is that they are pretty ruthless in the way that they operate. They don't really think a lot about, the broader context of their investments. They want to see returns. And if they don't see returns, which I think is what's happened with this steel company, then they tend to go away really, really quickly. And that's a problem. They don't really commit. Japanese and South Korean companies tend to, kind of be a bit more careful about the environment they're investing in. Chinese, I think, are not that experienced, but also pretty ruthless in the way that they judge opportunities. And when they think they're not delivering, they do tend to just up sticks and go.
Isn't this part of the problem and certainly the concerns raised by some people in the light of what's happened over the weekend and in the last few days, that do we really know how much control over the Chinese companies the Chinese government has? Do we know the answer to that?
Well, their mandate is to make money, right? I mean, that's not a mystery. They're making money for principally the Chinese government. The Chinese government then spends that money back in China or does what it wants with it. It's a highly centralized and state-run economy. I mean, there's no mystery about that. And we've dealt with economies like this in many other places. I mean, here's the kind of problem for Britain. We got like 0.1% growth. We have very big problems with productivity. We don't have an easy relationship at the moment with Europe or America, although maybe these things will improve soon. Who knows? China is the fifth largest, it is a fifth of global GDP, second largest economy in the world. It could invest more here. And in the current context, saying no to that investment, yet we can do that. But we do say no to a bigger thing than we did in the past. In 2005, Britain's economy was the same size as China's. Now China is 5.5 times bigger than our economy. So that's the difference.
This accusation that came out yesterday that the Chinese owners of the Scunthorpe plant had effectively sabotaged production there because it had cancelled the orders of raw materials. The UK government said it doesn't see any evidence of sabotage. Presumably you agree from what you've just said.
I think if it was sabotage, it's a terrible time for it to happen. I mean, China is under very big tariffs from the United States. It's in the middle of a pretty savage trade war. I don't think China is in the business of antagonizing others now as it faces, by way and far, its most important and formidable partner, the United States. So if it was sabotage, they have chosen a terrible time to do it. I can tend to agree with the government. I think that this is just real bad management. It's bad timing. I mean, you have to really question how prepared, some Chinese investors are coming here. There needs to be way more education on both sides. I mean, we have fault too. We don't have the educational levels we need to deal with Chinese partners. They do have things they can offer, and they increasingly have technology that we might need to have access to. So it's a complicated picture. We need to be way, way better prepared for it than we are at present.
And where does that preparation come from? Where does that expertise come from when dealing with a foreign country that we don't really know what is going on and what their intentions are?
Well, I think we have to take a deep breath and have way earlier education about, cultures and environments beyond just Europe. I mean, Chinese companies are going to figure in the world in the future. I mean, they're appearing in things like AI, they're appearing in areas like life sciences, environmental sciences. China is now producing important technology. It's a huge shift that we didn't really expect. And that means that we are not in the kind of position we were in the past where we kind of had technology China wanted. It's the other way around. I mean, this example is a bit of a cautionary tale. I mean, the way that the experience has been between Britain and China with this, steel factory, it's not good. We've got to do better on both sides. And I think China, it would find it in its interest, to have better relations with what is still the world's fifth, sixth biggest economy, Britain. I think it's an important economy. We definitely need to have better relations. In the services sector, we certainly do better than in manufacturing with China.
How further exposed are we if the trade war between the United States and China escalates, given the investment in the UK from China?
I think everyone is really badly exposed. I mean, the longer it goes on, the more likely it will lead to some kind of recession. That will be bad for China, bad for us, bad for the United States. I mean, it will really be lose-lose. I don't think China is going to back down in this fight. I mean, it's got all of the resources it needs at the moment. It can certainly last longer than others, but it's in no one's interest in the end for this to go on very much longer. There's got to be a deal between the United States and China for them and for the good of everyone else.
All your answers to the questions have related to the future of the economy, the UK's economy, China's economy, and the global economy. Have you any security concerns about China's investment, current investment in the UK?
Yes, of course. I mean, China is not a political ally. It's an opportunist, and it will pick on vulnerabilities where they happen, where it sees them. So we do have to be very aware of where we might be vulnerable. And I think we've done a lot of thinking about that. I think the current government is pragmatic. It knows that Chinese investment in telecoms and areas like this is not really going to work, not only because of issues with China, but because the United States has got big issues with us dealing with China in that way. I think we've just got to be very, very clear where we want that investment and where we don't. And I think we've got to be consistent. So we're kind of getting there. But I mean, this sort of case shows that we've got a way to go before we can be completely comfortable. And we'll never really deal with the risk. It will always be there. We just have to be constantly vigilant.
Professor Brown, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.